You know, vocabulary is absolutely critical. And we didn't realise how critical a wonderfully rich vocabulary was until the National Reading Panel report came out in 2000. What builds vocabulary is the words that we hear around us, and reading builds vocabulary. It's interesting that if the children who need most vocabulary development are the ones who don't read. So we absolutely have to teach vocabulary in a much more direct way than we ever thought before, because children can't read a word if it's not part of their vocabulary. If you look at a word like obnoxious, if that word is in the child's vocabulary and they come up against it, they'll get ob, knock, noxy, they will have nothing to relate it to. It's amazing how quickly children learn that English is an unfair language, and they will make that leap. It doesn't look exactly the same, but if they know the word, they can make that leap from something that looks a little bit like it to the word, if they know the word. Very, very, very important that we build children's vocabulary, and this has to be done directly and explicitly, because it's not going to happen, especially with the children who are not achieving the way they should. It's not going to happen incidentally from the language that they're hearing around them. We have to teach it directly. And we have to teach vocabulary in a vastly different way from the way I was taught when I was growing up, which was basically look it up in a dictionary. Even a children's dictionary is not that student-friendly in terms of some of the definitions. So many words in the English language have multiple definitions. Putting words in sentences as a one-off exercise, almost pointless. What we need to do is instill in children an absolute love and passion for words, and that has to be demonstrated in the classroom, and it has to be demonstrated at the school level too. There should be a principal's word of the week, if not a word of the day, that everyone is meant to try and use or something. And children need to have lots of exposures. So if doing some classroom interaction a child is looking confused, say, the teacher might say, "You look confused," and that might lead to a discussion about the word confused and another word for confused, bewildered. That's a fantastic word, bewildered. It's a word that a lot of children don't use. It's a word that not a lot of children wouldn't know. So let's work on bewildered, and you might count the syllables in it. You might think of other words that mean bewildered. You might use that repeatedly when you're in your maths lesson. "Now, Stephen, you're looking a bit bewildered." "Stephanie, you're not looking bewildered." So you keep referring to it, and then the next day you refer to it again. Now you do this as a habit with words that come up incidentally, and you also have words that are coming up in your stories that you really explore at a deep level. And as a little homework exercise, children might be asked to find a word, or in discussion with their parents, or you might give them a word and they have to go home and they have to explore that at so many different levels. At just how many syllables does it have? Do we know where it came from? What other words can we make from this word? Is this a base word that a whole lot of other words might come from? What are a whole lot of synonyms, words that mean more or less the same? What's the opposite? And this becomes part of a discussion the next day. It might be that all the children go home with the same word, children go home with different words, groups of children go home with different words, but we have to have repeated exposures around these words for it to be embedded in their knowledge. Deep knowledge is what we need of words. Isabel Beck, who's a wonderful proponent of building children's vocabulary, and I would suggest that any teacher who finds any book written by Isabel Beck should just buy it on principle. She's that good. She's got a wonderful book called Bringing Words to Life, and that's what she does. Many, many, many wonderful strategies to work with words, to play with words, and to help children concentrate on words. We get results from what we direct our attention to, and we really need to build children's vocabulary by paying direct attention to it and helping children just appreciate the treasury of words that we have in the English language. It does have the biggest vocabulary of any language, which is part of its richness, It's also part of its difficulty for some children. So really building this rich vocabulary and teaching children just to love words and to engage with words will help their reading, unbelievably. It will help their academic achievement. This is what the research says. So number 4, vocabulary is a critical part of what helps children learn to read.